So once you get your paper, I mentioned that you can measure 6 inches, 6, 12, 18, and then fold on the creases. Or you can take your paper and fold it, line up the edges, fold it in half. Make sure that the edges line up. And then open it up and then take the outside edge and fold that into that crease you just made. Take the other side and fold that into the crease you just made. I also have burnishing tools that you can use, or you can use your pencil. And this will help you get those edges nice and crisp. And once you open it back up, you're going to fold that middle back open. I like to burnish it again. So your book will open like this. So page 1, page 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to get your second paper, and I have special fabric tape that you're going to line on the back to connect them. So your book will open like an accordion fold, or you can do it page by page. So you're going to have 2 weeks to complete it. If you guys notice, when you open up the paper, it's maybe half of the paper you just made for the illustrated animal. So it's really not that much drawing space. And like I said, all your sketches are just a plan, an outline, nothing too involved. I wanted all the work happening here. So once you get your pages folded, then you're going to go in and you're going to start drawing in pencil. And you don't even have to go that detailed with pencil either. You could go straight to the pen. Remember, you're working with ballpoint pens. I also had the different Sharpies, and I also had the quill pens. So if you notice up in front, the quill pens have different types of nibs on top that will give you different lines, okay? And when you do that, I have these smaller ink containers. You're going to pour the ink. You don't need a lot, just a little bit. A lot goes a long way. And if you want to, you can also control the darkness by, if you wanted to make it lighter, you could add water. And then after you have gotten your ink, you just gently dip the top of your nib in, and you can start drawing. So no pressure. No pressure will give us a thin line. You can also press down harder to get a thicker line. Go turn the light on. Let's see that better. I don't know why it's glaring. Like I mentioned before, these have different nibs. So this one is a thicker nib, so it's going to give me a thicker line. This is another one that's thick. You can turn it on its side. So a lot of people use these for calligraphy. And then the this one that comes to a fine point is just going to give you a very thin line, the thinnest one. And that one looks like a little tiny miniature shovel. Okay? So you have all of those variations for you to play with. But like I said, this is what I would say old school. And it takes some work to constantly dip into it. So if you don't want to constantly dip into it, you don't have to. Just use the Sharpies. And I have the different micron pens that will give you the same effect. Okay? The next thing we're going to look at is washes. And I have a lot of personal brushes from home that I brought in. These are called bamboo brushes. So they're made from fine horsehair, sometimes squirrel. It's very, very soft, and it holds the ink very well. And I have these special inking trays for you to use, and I'm going to show you real quickly how to create value pretty fast. Okay, so what you do is on the very end, you put straight ink, and I'm just using the ink I already poured out. Like I said, you don't need as much as you think. This is going to give us the darkest value. And then as we get started, I have a lot of these water containers for you. Before you get started, you're going to fill each section with a little bit of water. Try and keep it all the same. And you can kind of see the ringlets already in the pan from when I've done this before. And then you simply dip your brush into the first tray. This is the darkest. So I'm going to show you a gradation. With the bamboo brush, I usually hold my finger to help it balance, but you don't have to. Remember, always keep your elbow off the table so you can get nice fluid lines, and you can get beautiful fluid lines. So thin lines, if you want thick lines, push down. So look at, this is going to be a really nice look. And so to get a gradation, you dip your brush in the dark, then you just simply start washing out your brush as you go. So I just washed out my brush in the next section. I'm going to wash my brush out here. Maybe I got too much. I'm going to wash this out a little bit. I used a little bit too much ink, but you keep moving it down so it gets lighter. There we go. So that's how you get a nice gradation. And like I told you, a little bit of ink goes a long way. So I can show you the gradations. So see how it's already getting lighter to light. So this will be good to like fill in areas, large areas if you have a background to illustrate value. And then once it's dry, you can go back in with your pen, and you can even use the ink from this tray as well. You can draw over it. You can even do washes over the ink when you're done. It doesn't matter. The next thing I was going to show you is called, remember in the slides, the blow paint technique. So you put a little bit of ink down on your paper where you want it to be, a drop of it, and you take your straw, I'm going to put a little bit more, a droplet of water, then you take your straw, and you blow, and so the ink will separate. So this is great to create trees. Like if you're doing like a tree, I gave like several examples from the past. Anything that's any water, if you have like a splash, could be blood, anything. So this is just another technique that's going to give you those drips. So going depending on which direction you go, these could also be drips. It looks like a what? Oh, it looks like a dragonfly almost, or a walking stick, yeah. Yeah. So this is another technique you could use. And then the final technique I'm going to show you is what's called an image transfer. And image transfer is a lot of fun. You can use I have all these old books you can use. You can actually use color or black and white. I'm going to just take this one out. And I also mentioned too, you could take any of these pages that you want, and you can I have the glue sticks out for you. You can actually use these to paint on as well or draw on. If you want like a background that has text, okay? simply find your images, and it's coming back on in a minute. One of these days, maybe they'll give me some nice technology. I have all these pre-made packing tapes. You can use Scotch tape too, but I think these are the best. If you don't want it that shiny, I can give you the school brands. But this is the nicest one, the Scotch. And it accidentally. Here we go. All right. So you take the tape, and you're gonna lay it over your image area that you want. If you don't get the full area, you simply just add another piece of the tape on the bottom. And when you are done with that, I have spoons, or you can use the edge. I like using the edge of scissors. And now I'm doing this is called burnishing. And I want to burnish the tape to that image, and I like going in different directions. You don't want to go, too hard, because you can actually start building up that texture on top of it. Sometimes it's just some residue on the film. It's fine. And then the next step is what we're going to do is you want to cut down your image area. And you can follow the square that's already here, or you could cut out a circular shape. It doesn't matter. You could even cut out the black area if you just want this image to appear. And the next step is I'm going to get some water. And I have all these containers. Here in the middle. There's other ways to do image transfers too that I can show you in painting class. We use acrylic transfer technique. I'm going to let that sit. You're supposed to use warm water, but for some reason my warm water is not working down here, so we're just going to go. Yeah. Color is optional. So I want you to show that. All right. So the paper is helping soak up that pulp, and I can even do this inside. So I'm just going to start gently rubbing that pulp with my finger. And as I start to rub, these little, the pulp is going to start to come off. And those are actually helpful too. I can pick it up if I need to. I'm keeping it in the water, like I said, because we don't have warm water, and you want to be gentle, because if you pull off too much, you actually pull off the image. Sometimes if you don't burnish hard enough, the image also won't transfer. But you can kind of start to see it starting to reveal. And so what it's doing, this water, is making the paper pulp melt. And I'm using my finger to rub off this pulp. If you guys ever know how we make paper, we actually grind up trees, and then into this pulp that I'm actually rubbing off with my fingers, and I put it through giant mesh and machines and spit out paper. And so right now we're taking it back to its original state. We're just deconstructing it with the water. There we go. And please do not pour this down the sink. Pour it in the trash. I'm going to have paper towels in the trash because this pulp could clog the drain. Okay? So you can start to see it starting to work. The tape actually keeps all the ink. And that's an old book. That book's probably as old as... Who, Gabe? No. Probably is older than me. I'll look at the print. That was a recycled donation book somebody gave me. So look, so I'm still taking it off. It's still not. You can still see kind of a little bit of a layer. And now I'm just gently. If you want to get clean water, you can, but I just keep rubbing that pulp off, and it will reveal. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. These can be addicting. I mean, the other thing that's really good about these is that we have a copy machine here, so we can also, if there's something that you find online that you want to do this with, you can print it off and do the same technique. Okay. So almost done. It's taking a little bit longer than I thought. Sorry, but that's for the most part. You can see. Let me get a piece of paper underneath so you can see it. So here we go. This is the tape that I put on that image. And what's really nice about these image transfers is that they're transparent. So if I have, remember the backgrounds we just did. If you want to do the image transfers last, you can certainly make them first and then make your background. But it's a shiny material. So this will be the last step. And then all we use is glue stick, which is transparent. So it won't interfere with your image. And so there we go. We can lay it, you can collage it onto your actual piece. So just a really cool technique you guys can use at home after this class. And if you take painting class, I will show you how to do it with matte medium. Matte medium is the same way. It's just acrylic paint with no pigment, and you lay it down on your surface, and then you put the image down, and then with a sponge in your finger you rub the pulp off, and it does the same thing. Okay? But this is a really easy, friendly way to do it at home. And like I said, you can use the packing tape that I have here, or you can use, regular Scotch tape. I just don't like using the Scotch tape unless it's clear. A lot of times the Scotch tape has this cloudy film on it, and it kind of, I don't think it looks good. Packing tape is the best because it has the clear surface. Okay? So those are all the techniques, the additional techniques I wanted to show you as we get started. Like I said, you guys have 2 weeks left to finish your format. It's only 2 of these spreads, which is basically half of the drawing you just did. It's not that much surface space. All right? So let's get started.